It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 466. Tonight I'm joined by Emmo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
Hello.
Grace.
Hello.
Kodra.
Hi.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
So I would like to note that it is slightly disconcerting to be watching an episode of a Y7 cartoon and realize that it's just going to be like start to finish David Cronenberg references.
Yeah,
What
that's
the
a
hell,
little
Sonic Boom?
weird.
What the hell?
That's a little weird.
There is an episode in which Tails manages to get himself accidentally merged with a bee-bot. And like, just the whole thing is just like direct references to The Fly.
I mean, like, it's good to school the children in the classics, but
yeah.
maybe not so early.
Tails' fate is like happily better than that of Seth Brundle. And, he doesn't start falling apart or anything, but it is a little...
Isn't storing body parts in the medicine cabinet?
No, but it is a little disturbing when instead of testing the telepods with a baboon, they test it with a pie, but the results are the same. And then Knuckles eats the inside-out pie because he's Knuckles.
Sure, why not, right?
It's just weird. That's what it is. Weird.
Like, I know there's a lot this tradition of cartoons working on multiple levels and having payoffs for adults, but I feel like that's just going to lead to confusion.
It's just like Cronenberg is an odd choice. I mean, that said, I grew up at the time when there were, there was an actual cartoon show based on the Toxic Avenger. And no child or adult should ever watch the original Toxic Avenger.
I don't know.
No.
Trauma movies are fine.
I watched Freakazoid, which I definitely didn't get all of the jokes for.
I mean, that was like the entire point of Freakazoid, I think. How confused can we make the children while still entertaining them?
I was definitely entertained.
And later confused once you realized what the references were.
I mean, obviously.
I do look forward to in the future, like my kid like watching a thing and just being like, oh, that's what that reference was.
The worst part is when the kids reference things that they don't understand and repeat them.
Yeah, no, like when they start like making a reference and you're like, oh, I get that. And they're like, it's a reference to this thing. That's like,
oh no, you said Summer Child. That's not what that's from.
No, you're like 3 levels away from the original reference.
Oh, anyway.
And then I feel old. But,
I mean, I feel old most of the time.
It's just life at this point.
So, speaking of old things being new, Celeste 64, is it literally a 64 game, or does it just look like a 64 game?
It just looks like a 64 game. It's written in C#.
Is it Polygon 3D?
It is Polygon 3D.
Oh my.
I saw some graphics and I was like, wait, is this did they really release a 64 game?
They made the game in, as they say, a weekish. It was probably 10 days or something. So no, it's not an actual N64 game. It's just, it looks N64. It's 3D though. You can jump, you can climb, and you can dash. And you can also dash jump. It's not quite wave dashing, but it kind of feels like it. But yeah, it's Celeste's 6th anniversary. And as a celebration, the team Extremely OK Games decided to release a project they made called Celeste 64. It's a single level, which is the city, the 3D version of City. There are 30 strawberries and a bunch of dialogue. Like, you get to talk to Granny, you get to talk to Theo, and you get to talk to Madeline right at the end of it, once you manage to do that final climb. I don't know. It was fun. I was kind of surprised at how it definitely controls a little weird because it's still a precision platformer. And like those do translate a little weird into 3D.
I recall precision platforming on the Nintendo 64 not always being great.
I mean, one game got it right. Exactly one game.
Yeah.
But I managed to play through it in about a little over 2 hours. Got all 30 strawberries, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, like they do, like by default they have a Z helper on, which basically shows you like a dotted line from Madeline down the Z axis until it shows you what piece of ground she's over top of.
This is why Mario has a vertical shadow.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I never really thought about that, but yes. I was like, man, this is super useful. Did they have something like, how did we do this in like Mario games? But
shadows.
that makes sense. And they implemented feathers and traffic blocks, and there are some funny momentum tech, and it's got a like just under 8.5 minute speed run right now for all 30 berries because the speed run is wild.
That seems incredibly fast.
It's pretty fast, but it's also Celeste, and there is, I mean, once again, there's no maximum movement speed.
I mean, I feel like ludicrously fast speedruns are also like a Mario 64 thing, so sure.
Mario 64, well, yeah, Mario 64 has other ways of... Mario 64 definitely doesn't have a maximum speed. At least it doesn't have a maximum backwards speed.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
It just seems like really fast for as short a period as it's been out.
I mean, this is a game that has a extremely dedicated speedrun community.
That's true.
And because they knew who was going to be playing it, have implemented a millisecond fidelity in-game timer.
Know your audience.
But yeah, it's really cool. There's new custom music as well. And it's very inspired by 3D Mario. I feel like specifically it's drawing a lot of inspirations from both Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine, which is the one that had like the secrets that were like in their own little, like you would go into a specific subworld. Was that I think that started with Sunshine,
Right.
I know
Mostly
Sunshine
Sunshine.
does that. Like sub worlds where you have to like do particular platforming.
Yeah,
They'll
where
often take flood away from you.
where they take flood away from you and you have to do a bunch of platforming. Yes. Those are the cassette areas, and like they start by showing you here's where the berry is, and then they pan back to show you where you're starting. The music is definitely inspired by Mario 64 as well. Apparently it was using the Mario 64 like sound font library, which I didn't realize was necessarily a thing, but I guess is.
That makes an amount of sense.
So, what is Songs of Conquest?
So, did you ever play Heroes of Might and Magic?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
So, Heroes of Might and Magic 3 was a really formative game for me, and I loved it quite a lot.
It's still the best Heroes of Might and Magic game. They never did better than 3.
Anyways, some people agreed and decided to make a new version called Songs of Conquest that's very inspired by Heroes of Might and Magic 3. You are a wielder, which means you can wield magic and like control armies. And you go around and you build up towns and you build up ways of recruiting new armies. You go and recruit the new armies, you get items, you get resources, you try and control points on a map until you ultimately like complete the objective of whatever the map was. You're leveling up your characters, you're deciding whether you're like making a character who's really good at like empowering their characters, or just casting spells yourself.
I mean, I know which of those I tended to go with in Heroes of Might and Magic.
What was it? empowering your armies?
It was not.
It was not. It was casting the spells. Casting the spells does seem pretty good.
It was ludicrously powerful spells.
Like, I have not gotten to the point where, like, spells can, like, really chew through big stacks, but they're still pretty strong.
It's funny. I never played the Heroes series. Most of my experience with games like this is from the King's Bounty remakes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In which that I was more fond of the in the second game I was more fond of buffing my various units. But in the first game, being a mage was just correct.
If you let me be a mage, I'll be a mage.
I mean, this game will let you be a mage. There's a bunch of different factions. I've currently played through the faction that is like humans and fae working together. Now I'm playing through a bunch of swamp-dwelling frogs and insects. And then I think the last campaign is the people that are the necromancers.
No campaign for the rats?
The rats are controlled by the necromancer faction.
Ah.
That's one of their units. At least the person I was facing stacked them up to 150, and that rat swarm was a problem. There's another interesting thing going on where the way you generate mana to cast your spells is every turn one of your units goes. They have a fixed amount of resource they provide, but they provide that resource whether or not there is one unit in the stack or 50 units in the stack. So it kind of reminded me of like some of my Infinity games where I was like, I'm going to tuck this unit of one little dude way in the back and hope no one ever notices them so that they can keep generating me mana for spells.
Mm-hmm.
And so that meant, but like, if you actually wanted to fight with a unit, you want it as close to max size as possible. So oftentimes, like, I would have a unit that was there to, like, basically act as a reservist, and during the campaign, I would siphon troops from that unit into the main fighting force, and that the unit would then hang more and more, just hang back and act as somebody generating mana for me. So there was a little bit of that interesting play going on as well. It also means that the types of spells you can cast does depend on like the mana that your various units are providing to you.
Oh, they're actually providing different sorts. There's like more than one type of mana?
There's more than one type of mana.
Okay, that's interesting.
And so each different school of spell requires different colors of mana, and different units provide different mixtures of mana.
But like the mana providing is just a passive thing. You don't have to like leave them out of combat to generate the mana or anything like that.
Oh no, every turn they activate, as long as there is one unit, one of them in that stack, they will activate and provide their mana to you at the start of their turn. But like, this is why if you only have one unit, it's incredibly vulnerable because someone can like look at it funny and it dies. Mm-hmm. And now you're no longer getting that mana anymore. The game is quite hard, is what I would say. I played the first one on easy, and I definitely had to reload a bunch. I'm now playing on normal, and I am in a heck of a fight. It's one of those things where on easy, I was always able to be like, I can lose a battle, but like I'm pretty confident I'm going to win this scenario. Normal, I'm definitely more in the I'm gonna lose battles, and I'm not sure I'm definitely gonna win this whole campaign. But yeah, it's very fun.
Definitely sounds like I need to check this out.
It's the 8-bits. It's not 8-bit. It's the like pixel art 16-bit, not really 16-bit, but like pixel arty graphics.
Okay.
That seems like that's what it should be.
Yeah, that seems entirely appropriate.
Also, there is like a bard singing a song about your conquests between every adventure, which is also fun.
I did not expect the title to be quite so literal.
Yeah.
So we've been basically knocked out of commission for a couple of weeks here, and there's been a lot of stuff going on. One of the big things is a survival game that's Pokemon with guns. I'm not playing that one. I'm playing the other early access survival game, Enshrouded.
That one sounds more interesting to me.
I'm not really sure how to describe this game.
It's a survival game, but Dark Souls.
Yeah, but that's not correct. Like, it's more like Breath of the Wild, their survival game.
I am enkindling flames. Everything is about me going around this blighted world, gathering embers and building more fires. It's very thematically Dark Souls.
Combat doesn't seem exactly Dark Souls.
No, I'll grant you that. Combat doesn't seem exactly
It's more
Dark
akin
Souls.
to like Breath of the Wild.
Sure.
You also glide around a lot. Like,
I guess that's fair.
Most of my getting places is trying to either get up really high and then glide down into the shroud exactly on top of my target, or, like avoid staying in the shroud for too terribly long. Okay, so the world is, they dug too deep, they got addicted to this magical elixir and dug these deep elixir wells, but like up from the darkness also came this malevolent force that has coated the low-lying areas of the world in this choking fog that kills you.
Aha.
So those areas are called the Enshrouded areas, or the Shroud. And by default, you start off with 5-minute timer. You can be in the Shroud for 5 minutes, but once you tick down 1 second over 5 minutes, you die. So a lot of the gameplay is figuring out how to make your way quickly through the Shroud and get to the objective, and maybe knock out a Shroud route, which like removes Shroud from that specific area, or taking resources into the Shroud with you that extend your timer. There's things you can find which resets your timer. There are ways that you can climb up on top of things, and then all you have to be is outside of the Shroud for a few seconds to reset your timer before going back down into it. So there's a lot of figuring out how to successfully navigate this difficult landscape, but also there's a lot of building associated with it as well. So it's very Minecraft with a purpose. It's got a really rich world. There's lots of interesting open world dungeons. You go out into the Shroud and save, these tradesfolk, which then you take back to your base, and they'll help you craft better things, and then they'll like, oh hey, I remember I used to have a cauldron that I could really use to make some potion. If you go find that cauldron, I'll now unlock a whole level of other things that you can get. So you have to go trek through hyper dangerous territory to go find this cauldron that they left out there when the world went away. And then you bring it back to your base, and now you've unlocked a whole tech tree associated with that. So it's really interesting. It's early access, but it's also like one of the most complete early accesses I've experienced. I am shocked how done this game is at this point. Like, sure, there's some weird bugs in it, but like it is, I would say it's fairly feature complete at this point, and there's a lot of quests and dialogue.
That's cool.
Like tons of questing.
I'm surprised. Yeah, that's the surprising part for me. I was kind of eyeballing it like, maybe I'll wait until it's a little bit more baked. It sounds like it's pretty baked.
Yeah,
I would say like this is going early access to get funds to polish and fine tune, maybe.
This is Hades early access,
right? That's what it feels like. Is there's a lot to the game, and it is very robust. The world is huge. I mean, the world is already as big as a Breath of the Wild, or bigger probably. Lots of different biomes, lots of different resources to go find. Some of which are really annoying. So like when you're in the Shroud, everything is like fogged over, which gives everything this whitish blue appearance. And now go find a slightly yellow rock that's just blends into the wall. Because the only place you can get amber is in the shrouded areas. But like, there's lots of other things that look almost yellowish in color. So like, it took me forever to finally figure out, oh, that's what amber looks like. Because I kept seeing yellow rocks. Okay, sure, let's mine those. There's a lot of dumb things you can do with terrain. You can dig through a lot of places if you're patient, because it's a voxel game. Everything's a voxel. And while you can't build anything without having this altar of flames, or I don't remember what it's called. So when you set down your roots and you build one of these little altars, it gives you X number of pixels out in every direction that you can build. And what that actually does is the state of those voxels now gets saved permanently. But everything else in the world resets on a mostly day-night cycle. But also if you log out of the game and you log back in, it'll respawn all the trees. So there's some shenanigans that you can do with that. You can also use these flame altars. That's the name, flame altars. You can have a certain number of them available based on how upgraded your main base is. And you can use these as way stations out in the world because you can fast travel to them. So I tend to keep one in my bag at all times. So if I'm, working on an objective, I can plunk down a flame altar just on the like you can't put them down in the shrouded areas, but you can put them down anywhere that's not shrouded. So you can put it down just on the edge of whatever shrouded territory you're working on so that you can work on clearing that out or learning the layout so that you can get in, fight the thing in whatever time limit you currently have on your base. I think mine is now up to 8 minutes that I have in an individual shrouded area. But yeah, it's really cool. You have, grappling hooks and gliders and tech trees that upgrade those over time. There's a actual talent tree system with, I think there's 8 core classes, and you can mix and match as needed. I took double jump, so I veered off the tank path to pick up double jump.
I was sure you'd be in the tank path.
Look,
yeah,
double jump is far too alluring.
Yeah, I got that really quickly because there's a lot of shenanigans you can do with double jump and gliding.
I should have taken that bet.
Were y'all discussing as to whether or not I went tank path?
Well, I'm still pretty confident you're not going backstab.
Oh, hell no. But, you can't, I am running around with a wand from time to time because wands are insanely overpowered. They auto-target. That means you can run away and kite things while you're plinking them with the wand. And it doesn't do a ton of damage there are staves that cast specific spells, and the wand is just kind of a generic, elemental attack, but it is extremely powerful to be able to have something that auto-targets while you're walking away and kiting something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds incredibly useful.
In some ways it feels kind of like an older MMO. If you die out in the world, it spawns a tombstone with none of your gear, but basically all of the resources that were on your body at that time. So you have to go back and get your tombstone.
That's true in a lot of survival games. That's how it was in Valheim.
Well, no, Valheim, you drop everything.
Yeah, you dropped everything. You went naked.
Yeah, this is more like the Fallout 76 style, where you drop all your junk, but you still have your armor and weapons and stuff. So
right. So you can still go get your stuff, but they've also made some concessions. So I remember I died at one point by falling in a hole and didn't realize there was a hole there because it's foggy. I couldn't see where I was going. So when I came back to get my tombstone, instead of being at the bottom of that crevasse, I was actually like, tombstone was up at the top level, like at ground level.
Well, that's
So
good.
It
Yes.
spawned it in a more convenient spot.
Which I will also say that's how
Dark Souls works.
how Dark Souls works.
Yeah, like it's really cool. If you are interested in that kind of, like, if you like building in games, if you like exploring in games, if you like, somewhat meaty combat, like, check it out. It's an interesting game. I think it is going to do well.
Yeah,
I think it's far more interested than Pokemon with guns.
I was gonna hold off on it until it was a little bit more baked, but hearing that description, maybe I will check it out sooner than later.
Mhm.
Yeah, that definitely.
It's got a lot of stuff going on, and like there's to some extent it kind of reminds me of there's a lot of what I would call the New World stuff going on, where like, yes, you are going on specific quests for NPCs, but also there's just a ton of stuff to find in the world, and there's like little letters that are left, because basically the story is this world was destroyed very quickly. So anything that was a low-lying area just got consumed by this shroud, and some of the populace has, become undead and things like that, and various monsters and stuff. But like the highlands are relatively safe, and there's a lot of those areas in the game. There's like a lot of quote-unquote safe zones in the game. So you don't always have to go into the timer driven areas. And a lot of times, like in those areas, you can also clear out and then duck out and clear out and duck out and clear out and duck out until you've make your way down to the boss of that area.
It feels less simulationist than Valheim did.
Right. It has Minecraft physics.
It feels more like a game. Like Valheim was a game, but it was also pretty simulationist. Like it was trying to be like, let's see what happens in this sandbox of a world. This feels a little more theme.
Yeah,
park.
like in Valheim, you had to actually support your structures. Like
Yes.
you had, or they would fall apart, and over time they would degrade because of the weather. This is Minecraft building. Like, and so far it doesn't seem like bad guys ever attack your base either. So once you've built it, you're fine. And you can build out in the middle of the air and it doesn't care at all.
Yep.
So there's, some of that is nice because you can build some interesting structures as a result. But, yeah, like the base building's fun. Like I've got, a little castle-y thing that I built. I posted a video of it earlier this week. But also like the actual exploration gameplay is really fun. And the world is really detailed. Like there's a lot of stuff out there. Like, I remember we talked about, Elder Scrolls being the game of tragic accidents.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of that feeling going on where like there's storytelling in just the environment, but like a lot of times there's, things that are left behind that also kind of tell a story of like these towns. And there's also weird stuff like there's a lot of things that you can craft that you can only craft once you've found it out in the world. Specifically like block types. So you may roll into a town and, in a chest, there's just a bunch of this block type. But by you looting that block type, you've learned the recipe of how to make it from that point on. And a lot of it's not difficult to make. It's just, this is a new stylized block that you didn't have access to previously.
Yeah. So is this a game that supports multiplayer? Can we do like
It-
Valheim and all have a server where we all support each other?
It does, but it's kind of weird. So character progression is tied to your character. Quest progression is tied to the world.
Valheim.
Yeah. It's kind of like Valheim, so that the server progresses as a group,
Right.
But you can play in anybody's world. But yeah, if you really wanted to do a persistent world scenario, you'd want to rent a server and have a persistent game that everybody can get in. I mean, you can do you can do co-op type things where like, you know, I take my character to Kodra's world and I'm playing in his quest sequences, and then I go back to my world and it's back to the way that it was previously.
I would say it probably
Okay.
also works well as like a, hey, we are a group of friends, we're only gonna play this game together, and so somebody will own the world and everyone else will join them when they're playing.
Right, and you can have multiple different characters. So you could say, I'm going to only play this character with my friends in this world.
Okay.
But
Having
you can
different
still have
classes makes that feel more interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
makes sense.
like I've gotten far enough down into the tank tree that I now have auras that if you're in the vicinity of me, you're getting defensive bonuses just by being around me.
The leveling feels slow to me.
It is. It's really slow. Like, and it starts to pick up, but only once you're doing a bunch of quests for these NPCs. Like, combat doesn't feel like it levels you very quickly.
Ah, got it.
Oh, interesting. I haven't seen that ethos in very long
Yeah,
time.
like I tried to grind, because like zombies spawn every night in the little vicinity that you start out in. And so that's the other piece of this that's interesting is it is a fixed world. It is not randomly generated. Like the world is huge. The world is highly detailed. It was probably initially procedurally generated, but then, you know, terrain designers and quest designers have gone out and made a custom world.
Okay, so if you join your friends in their world, it's going to be the same world, just with
It's the
like
same world,
a different
right.
state. Okay.
Right. But like there's a lot of areas in it and it takes a long time to get anywhere, so that even though you know, okay, you know, if I run south for, you know, 5 day-night cycles, I can get this sweet item. It still would take forever. And there are no gearing restrictions either, which is a little bit weird too. So like gear is just gear. You don't have to be a specific level to wear it. So
If you can get it, you can wear it.
if you can get it, you can wear it, which has created some degenerate strategies of how to cross the continent to get the best glider at the moment. You like where people will create these, you know, carry a bunch of flame altars, and there's a specific kind of shroud that is just instant death until you get your resistance up high enough to be able to survive in it. But Shroud has a Z height. You can build over the Shroud if you want to. So they will do like what it reminds me of is the Fortnite strategies where people like build ramps into the sky, but they carry along flame altars with them so that they will build to the edge of the flame altar, lay down another flame altar, start the next one, run back, extinguish their previous flame altar, which gives you a grace period to run forward before the game reclaims the items that were placed. So you can essentially like build a bridge forever if you have enough resources. So yeah, there's some degenerate strategies that you could do, but it's funny. So I'm pretty sure this next topic is the City of Heroes topic.
It might be.
Possibly.
Title is, wow, CC is really strong in this pre-WoW MMO.
Yeah. That was
Which
definitely a thing.
I think I need to give some background on.
I mean, when you make entire classes whose whole thing is CC, you know, you need to make them viable. So
I mean,
Yeah,
that
City
was
of
an
Heroes
EverQuest
has
thing.
What I would call interesting class design, in that there are a bunch of power sets distributed among basically 11 normal-ish archetypes in interesting ways.
yeah, I think that if I remember correctly, when the game first went live, it was 5 archetypes. Then they added an additional 5 with City of Villains that
That's
were
correct.
kind of flip sides of those. And then Homecoming has added Sentinel.
Yeah, Homecoming was added by the team that Homecoming took over from, and they kept it and have been balancing it. And also the various epic archetypes exist, but those don't really fit into this particular discussion.
Yeah, they're their own weird thing.
But the design of these classes is just not at all along the lines of what would come later.
Yeah.
FF14 has its very rigid tank DPS healer thing, and like it's just not. This game was not into that.
No.
Well, to be fair, like WoW is the game that watered down the class makeup, because like a lot of what's happening in City of Heroes was the norm in like EverQuest or Dark Age Camelot, where you had like dedicated measures, or you'd bring a person because all they did was give you a haste buff.
Mm-hmm. That was definitely a thing in City of Heroes back in the day. I imagine it still is. Like kinetics is real good.
Yeah, and the thing that City of Heroes did, there's this interesting turning point where a bunch of people in like EverQuest and I don't remember exactly when FF11 came out, but like Shadowbane, there were a lot of games in that pre-WoW era that had like just a completely different way of thinking about how you played them. But the thing that was really interesting was that a number of games were like, or a number of people at the time were like, hey, it actually sort of sucks to be the person who casts a buff every 5 minutes and does nothing else for the party. And the party loves me, but I'm bored.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and healing wasn't that different either, because like I was a cleric. I cast one spell every 12 seconds.
Yeah. And WoW and basically everything that came after it said, okay, we are getting rid of that ethos entirely. These situational buffs and so forth cannot exist anymore. And City of Heroes took that same thing and said, okay, but what if it was also still cool? Like, what if you still were having fun while doing this thing that your group loves?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely feels like, because City Heroes and WoW are contemporaries. They came out in the same year. They were being developed at the same time. So this is a scenario where both saw a problem and they came to different conclusions as to what the fix for that problem was.
Yeah, you can see the EverQuest DNA in both games. They just took different paths from that.
Yeah. And like, if the MCU had started a bit earlier, City of Heroes probably would have been the template for MMOs.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I'm sort of convinced that the only reason that City of Heroes didn't become the template for MMOs is because at the time comics were kind of having superheroes in general were kind of like not doing super great.
They were not
Accurate.
They were doing very badly.
And so there was no like draw versus World of Warcraft.
I mean, and the City Heroes launch was amazing. Like, I remember somewhere around here, I have all the comics that were released, because every month you would get a comic book for paying the subscription fee.
Yeah. They had a bunch of really cool... I mean, it had a ton of just really cool ideas.
Yeah, back when Blue King Studios existed, like, when just these tiny studios could exist, even. But yeah, no, I absolutely have every issue of the City of Heroes comic. There's some cool stuff in there. But yeah, there just wasn't... I mean, this was the early aughts. Like, there was no good on-ramp for comics at that point. It did not exist. Like, if you were already a superhero fan, then great. But there was no good path for bringing people into it.
Well, the other problem that you had that City Heroes was fighting is there was a lot of early dilution of the MMORPG market, and like WoW was the Uber game that kind of came along and stole everyone's attention, but like when City of Heroes launched, there were a bunch of other small games, and they were all fighting for I don't know, 100,000 players ish
Yeah.
type scenario.
Yeah, like that was a good number pre-WoW. And
Oh
you
yeah,
had
100,000 players was top tier. You know, there were games that peaked at half that.
yeah, and to
And
a great
were, like,
degree, the way
reasonably
people
successful even.
were, yeah, and to a great degree, the way studios were like trying to get their slice of the pie was just going into different genres and different styles. Like, I mean, City of Heroes was the superhero game. You had Star
mean,
Wars Galaxies being the Star Wars game.
Yeah.
Auto Assault was the, Car Wars game.
Yeah. Like, it wasn't until WoW that everybody's like, "Oh, fantasy one. We got to do fantasy." Like, it was absolutely a large part of the MMO marketplace. You had EverQuest and you had Asheron's Call and stuff like that, but it wasn't the be all and end all at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, you had Earth and Beyond. You had all sorts of very niche MMOs.
I mean, the first MMO wasn't even fantasy. The second was, but the first one wasn't.
So the thing that got me here is actually we've had some previous discussions about the role of tanks in parties.
Ooh, yeah.
Because for the large part, a tank is just a CC that needs healing.
Yes. It's like you control the enemy by having it hit you instead of them.
City of Heroes is where all of my radical ideas about tanks comes from.
And in City of Heroes, that's still a very valuable thing to be doing.
Yeah, tankers are great.
However, especially when you aren't in like a group of 8, it's possible to just control enemies without having a body to do that.
Like if the enemy is, floating in the air and unable to act, that keeps them from hurting your friends.
Yeah,
Works very well.
The kinds of things, going back to your original premise, like polymorph in World of Warcraft is a strong CC
In that game.
And in City of Heroes, polymorph would be garbage tier.
Yes, because it breaks as soon as you damage them.
And it heals them, and it's all sorts of awful.
Absolutely, just terrible crap. Like that's the CC that you would give a non-CC archetype as like a joke.
Yeah.
Or as like an ability to just, keep one person off of you on an otherwise damage-focused class.
Yeah, there's
and this exists in several power sets.
Well, I mean, one of the abilities that you can get as when you create a character, you get an extra ability based on your origin, which is one of the special abilities, and each of those applies a status in addition to a small amount of damage, and one of those applies sleep, and that's one of the very weakest abilities in the game is this sleep dart. Like it's useful to keep one additional enemy controlled for a little bit while I'm not hurting him.
Yeah, I used it to pull things.
Yeah,
but I randomed into it on my character, and I use it now to pull.
Yeah, but I don't use that anymore. I have so many better things to do with my endurance.
Yeah, it's not worth the resources you'd spend on it.
Yeah, the starting CC on the character I rolled who is a Dominator, which is one of the CC-focused classes, is a hold. And what a hold is just it prevents the target from acting or moving and does not break on anything.
Yep.
Yeah, it's banish, except you could damage the target.
Yes.
Also, that ability itself starts by dealing damage.
Yes, it also does damage.
Yeah, none of those CCs that only do CC here. No, they do some damage as well. Like I have Crush, which is an immobilize, and it also deals enough damage that I often will just apply that to a guy and then deal with everybody else, and after a while that guy falls over.
Yeah.
I have Entangle, which reads like entangling roots in WoW and sort of does the same thing. It roots somebody and does a little bit of damage, except a little bit of damage in this game is a lot more than entangling roots ever did.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't ever break.
I didn't take Crush because I didn't need it. The level of control options I have are such, because I'm also I'm playing a slightly different build than Thalen, and I'm just Crush does not add anything to what I'm doing such that it's worth bothering with, even though it's super strong.
And that also sort of comes down to the difference between class designs, because
Mhm.
Thalen's playing a controller, which means he needs to get most of his damage out of his control set.
Yeah,
You are
also
playing a
true.
dominator, and you have a damage secondary instead of a support secondary.
Yeah, and
Which is a really
another
weird
interesting
thing.
kind of view is they have two explicit. This is the pure crowd control class, and they play very differently.
Well,
What it-
because one is the hero one and one is the villain one.
Well,
And-
what it really reminds me of is whenever Quest 2 came out, there were basically two flavors of every class. There was a evil side and a good side one, and a lot of times they did the same kind of things that are happening here.
Yeah,
Like an Inquisitor was a way more DPS focused healer than Templar, I think, was the equivalent of that on the good side, and it was way more of a pure support.
Yeah, because in general, the villain classes are more aggressive than the hero classes, which makes sense. Like that's the vibe you want for City of Villains. Like you are hurting people. That's what villains do.
And in a similar vein, they're also usually less durable.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times they often become the easier solo class because they're doing some things that are potentially easier. Like you're generating more. Like if you're a controller, you have lots of strong control skills, but you also, are dealing a lot more damage. If you're, I guess, it's Dominator is the villain version, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It also, the other thing that I feel like you get out of this alternate approach, this like alternate mindset, I have what feels like a ridiculous amount of customization for what my character does, and yet I still feel like my character has an like a clear identity.
Yeah, that was, I think, one of, like, even from the very beginning, that was one of City of Heroes' greatest strengths, was you could make a character that felt distinct. Like, this was your character, and it was not precisely like anybody else's.
Yeah.
Like you could literally like just thumb through Marvel Universe, land on a random hero, and you could create that hero in this game.
Yeah, which led to lawsuits, and yeah. But yeah, like you.
I mean, it led to some actually, like, it was one of the things that led to some like actually pivotal IP law about fair use. But it was all like, I mean, I made One Punch Man, and I'm running around as One Punch Man, and it's hilarious. But I also have my like other much more unique characters, and even if I made a character that is the same archetype and the same power set as somebody else, they can still feel pretty different.
Yes.
Like, I worried a little bit because I was like, man, I really want to try gravity control. And I knew Thalen was playing gravity control. But, like, Thalen is a gravity kinetics controller?
Radiation.
Gravity radiation controller. I am a gravity electric dominator.
Yeah, that secondary really matters.
We do not. You would not really know that half of our abilities are the same. Like we're very, very, very different.
Yeah, like even if you're the exact same power pools, part of what a lot of the difference comes in is that you're not just given fixed abilities. You purchase those out of a larger pool of abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you want to go in on a specific feel, like you can lean into, I only want to care about the single target abilities. I only want to care about the AoE abilities. And that's actually something that's kind of viable.
Yeah, absolutely. Like my character, just like for who he is and how I want him to feel, like I specifically only take ranged abilities. He is not a direct fighter. But if I wanted to, I could absolutely take, fighting and air superiority out of the flight pool and various things like that, and have him be very punchy for combat and still be a gravity controller. And it would work.
Similarly, Dominator is often positioned as a melee class. A lot of the secondary pools that give you your damage abilities are pretty melee heavy. Electricity is not, so I'm playing a Magneto-inspired character that's gravity and electricity blasting people from a distance. And that's like not normally what Dominators do, but it works.
Yeah, Dominators are a lot of the secondaries are almost all the secondaries are very hybrid. Like they contain a mix of melee and ranged abilities. A few of them are more one than the others. It's possible to sort of lean towards something.
I wish I could play this game with like a little bit less sticky of combat. I think
I think that's the thing that I'm missing from here is I would love to see what this game could have been with some of the combat style of like a Guild Wars 2 where you're hitting whatever's in front of you, not specific targets.
While it is not at all in the style of this game, I again wonder if other people play DCUO at all.
I did.
DCUO is designed like a post-WoW MMO, so just to make that completely clear. But it did at least like its moment to moment was quite good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would love to see the modernized version of this. Like,
yeah, because
The
my
fact that
understanding of DCU is like the main problem people have with it is you don't have a lot of customization ability on your characters. Like you're playing sort of Green Arrow or sort of
no,
Superman.
at least it wasn't before. I mean, well, it varies. It's far less customizable than this game, but it was more customizable than that.
Okay.
I don't know. Like I remember playing a character that was basically discount Batman.
I mean, and that may be part of it is, the audience coming into DCU Online is to a great extent the audience that played City of Heroes. So less customization than this is,
would have felt like a step back.
Yeah.
Be a step back.
Well, and that's sort of the problem is almost everything that tried to step in and post City of Heroes was a step back.
Mm-hmm. Because it was in part because it was post WoW.
Yeah, DCUO is a post WoW game. Champions focused on making the moment to moment much better, and it largely succeeded
Until they decided to nerf everything anyway.
Yeah, until they made some just unbelievably questionable decisions, but also like they didn't really. It did not feel like they understood City of.
No,
which
they didn't design
hilarious.
powers like this.
Yeah, they were much more interested in magic style combos. Put your field down and then hit them with this other thing so that your field procs and this other thing procs and.
Mm-hmm.
Make these chains of abilities that all work together. And there's a little bit of that in City of, but not so much that it's defining your gameplay unless you choose to make it that.
Yeah, it tends to be this ability works better if you use it after this ability. Yeah, mostly just I'm enjoying so much having City of Heroes back and cannot help but just think about like what might have been.
Right.
If
that's a lot of the thought processes that I've been having is like, because I was very much someone that left City of Heroes to play WoW, but also we've talked before about like what we gave up by going to WoW and the thinning out of the pool of options, and this game more than anything kind of shows what could have been possible, because like I don't know that I remembered just how detailed this game was.
Yeah.
I mean, they had some time to continue development.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the version of this game we're playing is after what it was at end of life, which was well after WoW came along. But it's still based upon that core game. Like nothing changed. But like they did not do like a new game experience. They did not make that mistake. But I mean, and one of the things that I am enjoying so far, and maybe there's some time gated stuff later on, I don't remember, But it's so nice to play an MMO and not have daily chores.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's so great. I can just, if I want to play today, I play. If I don't want to play today, I don't. And I don't feel like I'm missing out on something or falling behind.
Yeah. You can I found myself playing it a lot this week. Like I have been exhausted this week. It's been a very busy week. I have found myself playing this a lot just because it doesn't demand so much of me that I need to like commit. It's just like, oh, I can play for fun.
Yep. Like there's that too. I don't feel like I have to be doing this specific thing that is the thing that advances, that advances a bar or what have you.
Yeah.
I go out and I get missions from my contacts and I do them.
And in the meantime, like it lives in this unique place because of the circumstances in which it exists, which are, make FF14 look downright normal, frankly.
It does now, anyway. This is definitely some unprecedented ground.
Yes.
Like, yeah, it's an MMO that's not trying to make a profit.
It's an MMO that, like,
cannot make a profit.
Yeah.
My biggest frustration is actually that, like, for all that I've played it in the last month, I can't give them money. I had like a 30-minute window this month where I could have given them money as like a, hey, this game is rad, like, thanks.
And only
but
via
I cannot.
PayPal. Yeah, I don't have any real way to show my appreciation and be like, maybe develop things, build more stuff.
I mean, you could always become a developer.
I mean, I could, but I have a day job.
Yeah. I thought about that for like 5 minutes and then realized, I've got another job. I don't need another one.
Like 20 years ago, yeah, I would probably be all over this.
I mean, and this is they run their outfit really well. But I get to see the like what does a live service video game that doesn't exist in a capitalist environment look like? And it's sort of beautiful.
Yeah. Like, but it doesn't exist in a capitalist environment, and like to the majority of the audience who are playing it are like folks who just like really love this idea and want to play this game and have fun with it.
It makes me really wish there was a mastodon of MMORPGs.
Yeah. Like maybe there are people who are trying to be the best and be the power gamers, but I have yet to see any real sign of them.
Like the biggest thing I see from people is them going, hey, like the closest you get to like modern MMO group elitism is people like, hey, you with the all knockbacks power set, could you maybe not?
Yeah.
And, reasonable.
Yes, entirely.
Like, yeah, all your melee party members hate you. Yeah. And it turns out there are like your abilities in lieu of gear, your abilities get modifications. Some of those modifications can be like, oh, you didn't want to knock people back? Okay, all of the knockbacks from this ability are just knockdowns now.
Yes.
Like, did you want to be a team player? We're gonna enable you.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of the anti-knockback stuff happened during the EverQuest 2. I can remember being in parties where they're like, please stop grav fluxing the boss.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's all, yeah. Because, I mean, so many of the abilities in this game, like, make an AoE around an enemy or something, and, maybe you want to be able to collect all of the enemies inside that. So if it's flying around all over the place willy-nilly, yeah, that's a problem. And also your melee dudes want to be able to punch it.
Very much so. I would like to be able to punch it.
I do think another thing this game does that is pretty interesting is a better job than most modern games of differentiating enemies.
Oof,
yes.
Sometimes an enemy is an enemy, and sometimes those enemies are actually dominators and will CC you to death.
Yes, like all of the abilities that players can get, like enemies draw from that same pool of abilities, like, and will have, you know, different things. Like they normally don't have like an entire primary and secondary like a player, unless you're doing a task force that ends with you fighting your mirror doubles, and oh my god,
Oh boy.
that was
It's
painful.
it's all of
That
the
hurt. That
it's all
hurt
of the
a lot.
worst parts of the overpowered mirror match, and fighting a balanced party is the hardest thing you can be doing.
Yes. But you do run into, like, depending on what your specialties and weaknesses are, like different groups of enemies might be your kryptonite, or even particular enemy types within a group. Like maybe the group as a whole is fine until this one particular enemy type shows up, and that thing is awful.
Cast blind on the group that lasts like 2 minutes.
Yes, that was a problem.
Like when if I'm fighting Freak Show, mostly Freak Show are no problem. I like, I beat him up. It's fine. It's whatever. And then there's that one. Then that one dude shows up, and I don't get him controlled fast enough, and he puts me to sleep. That is a problem.
Yeah. There's a group that's like mostly me exploiting the law of conservation of ninjutsu, except that sometimes there's a mage in there and they're terrible.
Yeah, like this sorcerer throws up a hurricane around himself that like blinds you when you're inside it, and it's just unpleasant.
I will
Is that
say,
what that does?
I believe so. Yes, like among other things.
I just shoot those guys in the face.
Yeah, no, I mean, two sorcerers, like when I see that there is one there, he gets held, and he remains held until he falls unconscious.
Ah,
That's just
okay.
how that works.
Different enemies, but yes.
And it's like the consigliere that is the measure of the mafioso
Of
type.
the family, yeah. I believe so, yeah. Or like fighting the Devouring Earth, and like every Devouring Earth lieutenant has some sort of little pet that it summons that buffs everybody, and they're all awful.
Especially if you have entire packs of them. But like that's really the thing. Like I said this when we were talking about it last week, is how detailed the enemy design is. And intra faction design is just primo.
Yeah, it's so good. And it matters. Like in modern, my operating theory is that in modern WoW, CC just isn't a thing because their CC is boring and not good.
Yeah.
And so over time, the game has just stopped making CC a thing that anybody cares about.
CC essentially stopped being relevant during Cataclysm.
I think also because
And
the thing in
this went along with tanks getting better AoE.
yeah, because the thing in WoW became about how fast can we do this, and CC is not fast.
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
Where it used to be, how safe can you do this? Because dying was a pain in the butt.
And City of Heroes is how fast can you do this?
Like that is very much a thing going on in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because their CC is strong.
Right.
Yeah, and
you
that's
just lock down a whole pool, then nobody that's great. CC is wonderful.
Yep, because WoW CC breaks when you damage them. City of Heroes CC does not.
And so and as a result, it's still relevant. It isn't a game that's evolved out of like a core function. And like because it's strong and because it's interesting, you can build entire classes around it, and it feels like it matters because it does. And that enemy that CCs you get to it first, and now you can be a lot faster because your party's not getting CC'd.
Is anyone playing a defender?
My second most advanced character is Defender, yeah.
How, like, that was the thing I was wondering, like, how does Defender feel? Because in a game where, like, dedicated healing is not a thing, like, what is that thing doing?
Buffing
Defenders
and
are here for
debuffing.
buffs and debuffs.
Mm.
Buffs and debuffs are extraordinarily strong in this game.
I mean, the reason kinetics in particular was the defender that you wanted at least one of in your party is because everything it does is simultaneously debuffing the enemies and buffing your party, because it's all about power transfer.
My defender is poison, so I have one tiny heal that I cannot use on myself, and I have a million different debuffs that I can place on enemies that make them not able to function. Like, it's not hard lockdown like a controller or a dominator would have, but their accuracy is nothing, their resistance is nothing, their defense is nothing, so whatever.
Yeah, it's like it's endless soft control.
Yeah, like
and it turns out soft control is strong.
Yeah. Now, classically, defender is the least capable solo because it does not have a lot of damage output. But I mean, you can still make it work if you really want to. Defenders do get blaster secondaries. They do get to do some damage. It's just not their main thing.
They get blaster secondaries, and they get a passive that buffs them significantly when they are solo.
That's good. I don't know if they originally had that.
I have no idea when that happened, but that is the current state of things.
Yeah, that's definitely a good thing.
Okay, I think the next topic may be a little long for the time left.
Seems likely.
But so I'm going to jump down to a quick Path of Exile topic. Dedicated bossers are kind of overpowered.
What?
I believe
you
it.
Don't say.
Yeah, like it's
Welcome to the club,
amazing. It's amazing what a difference that makes, and also how it kind of trivializes the boss fights.
I mean,
I've now finally gotten my 4 Voidstones for the first time. I've killed everything that's not an Uber boss.
I was about to say, if you want to feel like bosses still matter, you can click a keystone and discover that you are not on their level.
Yeah, I don't know that my damage is there yet. Like, my damage is probably fine. I just have to be better at the mechanics. Whereas right now I'm largely just cheesing the mechanics.
This is reasonable. I don't know how Penance Brand works. I need to get better at Hexblast Mines and also rebuild myself to be like, to do this Uber boss, I should probably just plan on I'm never going to get hit because I need to deal more damage. And so, like, the Uber bosser builds I'm seeing are Dial's Malefaction builds.
I'm honestly fairly tanky. Like, not like my levels of normal tanky, still fairly tanky. Like,
I'm fairly tanky myself right now. But I'm also not tanky enough. Like, I am both not tanky enough, and I don't actually think you can be tanky enough to tank anything from an Uber boss.
Yeah. So I have been reading up on Deep Delve, and that is some nonsense. Because basically, in order to do Deep Delve, aka delve around depth 2000, you have to be able to do bare minimum 100 million damage.
Good lord.
But also be almost invulnerable, because apparently after a certain point, you're just going to have negative 200 to all darkness resistances because you can't keep up with it.
Yeah, I know that's what a lot of the ridiculous Pathfinder builds were built for.
Right.
Although a lot of them tend to die in Delve, which is particular rare epics. It turns off fast.
Yep. Yeah. Straight up does. But yeah, like, it's been interesting. Like, I've officially killed every boss now. Like, Maven was the only one I hadn't killed. And it, like, I don't know. It always was the rounds took too long and I had to do entirely too many memory games. Like, I can do the first couple memory games, but once they get longer, it just becomes something that I can't keep up with.
Oh, yeah. But, like, a couple memory games isn't bad, especially memory games when she hasn't got a bunch of circles on the ground.
Right, exactly. Like, being able to kill Maven before most of the time any circles drop. Honestly, like, Uber Elder, aka Elder and Shaper at the same time, was easier than just Shaper.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
It's disturbing that that's the case. So, I mean, like, I guess my takeaway is, build the character I want to play, then at some point build the dedicated bosser and just call it good.
I mean, if you want another option, I'm here to tell you, Hexblast Mines can also do this.
Yeah, but I don't want to play Hexblast Mines.
It's really fun.
I've seen your gameplay style. It's not my jam. Like, I mostly did Penance Brand because it's busted as hell, but also
And it's going away.
It's absolutely going away. There's no way that this is going to stick around.
There are several transmuted gems that I do not think are going to survive the next patch, basically.
But also, I really like Brand playstyle anyway.
Yes.
So it was already in my wheelhouse. I like playing Brand builds. This one's just dealing way more damage than it should. I mean, on pretty low end gear, if POB is correct, I have like 11 million damage.
That's way higher than I've ever gotten to.
It's really busted. If you want to do stupid things, build a Penance Brand character. But also, like, as a result, the economy has proven this out. Like, if I want a 2120 gem, it's 40 divines.
Yikes.
If I want just a level 1 uncorrupted Penance Brand of Dissipation, it's like 6 to 7 divines. So I've been running Labyrinth just to try and convert gems to see if I can get some more to try and level and see if I can get a lucky corrupt. I mean, I've already got a level 27 Penance Brand, so I don't know that a 28 would make that much of a difference, but
the game's economy is in a heck of a state right now.
We've already talked about that one a bit, though.
But you know those things in Delve that are used to create the new gem that everybody's chasing? Apparently the Delve piece sells for 10 divines each, and I was just sitting on a bunch of them.
I mean, it comes from a thing that isn't running maps.
Delve precursor rings are higher than I've ever seen them.
Yeah, well,
basically anything that doesn't come from juiced mapping is outrageously expensive. Anything that comes from juiced mapping is ridiculously cheap.
That's really funny.
Well, the same thing was happening last league, where it was basically anything that came from Sanctum was really cheap, but anything that came from anything else was super expensive because people were generating raw currency in Sanctum and then needing other things and paying outrageous prices for them.
Yep.
But now we have like the 100 divine mage bloods and 50 divine headhunters, which is like super cheap.
But
anyway,
I don't know. I enjoy playing a lot of DPS. So I'm glad you're getting to experience what it's like to be me sometimes.
Yeah. Like my chill gameplay is still like I've gotten the Bone Shadow character up to enough survivability where it feels good. I've gotten the Righteous Fire character to a good place as well, where it's a pretty chill mapper. The one that like is lagging behind is Lightning Arrow Champion, just because it's kind of boring as compared to the others.
I keep trying to figure out how to make my Cleave of Rage Berserker feel tanky enough, and I think there's a contradiction in that statement.
I believe you are correct.
I think trying to make my Berserker feel tanky is me making a mistake.
Like, is there a way to do that build off of a Juggernaut?
Not really.
No.
You lose a lot. You lose way too much.
I feel like one of the things that was driven, I mean, I knew before this league, but was driven into me with it was, I feel like the most important operative thing about Path of Exile is you can just stop.
Yep.
And like, it's amazing how much more interested I am in the next league, knowing that I stopped this league. I'm like, yep, I've done everything that I want to do.
Yeah.
And I don't need to keep pushing. You can push as much as you want, and it's fine either way. And it's so rare to see a game where that works. Because if you just you could play through the campaign and be like, that was cool, and be done, and that's fine. You can do like a little bit of post-game content and see how you feel about it. You can do what I did, where I like, all right, I'm going to get the unique set. I'm going to do enough challenges to get the unique set.
That's what I did last league.
Yeah, or you can be Kodra and be like, I want every achievement, including the terrible ones. The ones designed to make you hate yourself for grinding that much.
I am kind of
Those are
giving
less
up.
bad than usual this league.
They are mostly less bad, although most leagues do not include Ubers as a thing. And I have now earned, like, this is the first league I attempted Ubers, and I think if I had attempted an Uber last league, I would have had a little better appreciation for what a terrible idea Ubers are. Like, I think I'm now starting to even at least understand what's required to do them, which is, like, give up on the idea of trying to live through any sort of an attack. Just do as much damage and hope they die before you die 6 times.
Well, I think there's two different trains of thought there. There is the soft core mentality, which is do all of the damage you can and kill them within 6 portals.
Yeah.
Then there's the hardcore mentality, which is make sure you can survive every single attack ever.
Even the hardcore, like I've watched Zizaran do it, and he's mostly just avoiding everything.
Right, because he's done it so many times at this point. Like, I came to that point of realization that I just haven't fought these bosses enough. Like, when I'm in Delve, I can autopilot all of the Delve bosses. I have all of their mechanics memorized. I never get hit by anything, but I've done so many of them at this point. Like, I've fought all so many times. I've fought, the Vol boss or the Abyss boss. Like, I've killed them so many times, and it's just that they've fought these things hundreds upon hundreds of times. So, like, Maven is a pattern that they follow. Elder is a pattern that they follow. And that's the thing that kind of frustrates me with the way that bossing works, at least the mapping related bosses, is it takes so much effort to get the repetition necessary to memorize the fights.
Yeah. No,
because I've fought Maven probably at this point 6 times, and I finally downed it this time. Like 6 times amongst all of the leagues that I have played in, because it's a pain in the ass to fight Maven. Like, you have to do 10 maps and then fight, a 10 way, or is it 8 way? Is it 8 or is it 10?
10.
Yeah. Then you have to fight one of those and you get 1 or 2 slivers. And you have to repeat that until you get 10 slivers, and then you can make an attempt at Maven.
If you are in a bossing build, as it were, there are some other ways to get splinters that are a little faster.
It's true. You can do Maven invitations with the specialized Maven invitations to fight the all 4 guardians, all 4 Shaper Guardians, all 4 Elder Guardians. There's also the
right, but that also means you have to have Guardian maps to be able to do those or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not. I can't enter and try and enter and try and enter and try.
No,
like you could with Searing Exarch and Eater of Worlds.
I will say, if there was one thing I would think is a drop rate that could be improved, it is Elder Guardian maps.
Yeah, I have all of the Atlas support to generate those, and it's still every other map or so.
Oh, it feels less common than every other for me. It feels like 1 in 6 for me. Maybe,
but yeah, it's still pretty rare, and maybe I'm only seeing them as often because but you're fully juicing them too. So
yep.
I don't know.
Juice does not influence that.
Really?
No.
Destructive play is basically the only thing you can do to get better at that.
Which I am also doing.
But again, okay, this is what I'm talking about is in order to learn the bosses, there's just this errata that you have to deal with.
Yep.
No, I'm here to agree with you.
We're not here disagreeing with anything you're saying.
But it's back to Tam's point. Up until this league, I just decided, you know what? I don't care enough.
Yup.
I
You
won't
wanna-
do them.
If you want to fight the boss, you got to do your chores first.
But
I don't
and
want to do
that's-
my chores.
And I
don't wanna
build
do
a specific character for it, and it's kind of easy if you've got a character designed for these bosses, but otherwise, it wasn't worth it.
The other statement here, which is one of the things I've been personally dealing with, is just drop a mirror and then nothing matters.
And that's
Yes.
Drop a mirror, nothing matters. Everything feels a little bit hollow now. Oh, did
Right,
I just get a divine? Cool, neat.
that's part of the reason why I haven't been interested in getting a pity mage blood. Because once I have a mage blood, what's left to chase?
Yeah, if you're a PoE billionaire, what's like what?
I mean,
what is even left to do?
I bought myself a headhunter, and that's also kind of made that character uninteresting.
I'm not willing to say I'm uninterested in my character with a mage blood, because it's still very fun and there's still stuff I want to do, but I guess my point is I can spend 25 chaos and buy guardian maps.
Right. You could pay somebody else to do your chores.
Right.
I can pay someone else to do my chores, which doesn't feel great.
No.
But is an option because I dropped a singular item that made me ludicrously wealthy.
And you did it before TFT imploded.
I did it before TFT imploded. Actually, they're probably higher priced now.
They probably are.
Oh no, because
Wait.
there's no Mirror Mafia. Oh,
Wait, what happened?
Oh my goodness. There was drama on the Forbidden Trove, which is Discord channel for managing high roller trades and stuff.
Wait, there was drama amongst the wealthiest of the wealthy?
Oh yeah.
I'm shocked.
Exactly.
And it was drama between the uber wealthy traders and a streamer. So the streamer was like, "Hey, this seemed pretty terrible," and then got banned from TFT.
Well,
and then a bunch of other streamers speed ran.
So it actually started more innocuous than that. The person who maintains POB did not want to sell to the person who runs the TFT Discord, because I guess he's been trying to corner the market on that which was not taken gem,
right,
or whatever. So he didn't want to sell to him, and mostly because there's a bunch of allegations that TFT is funded on RMT.
Real money transfers.
Yep. So this is all allegations, but so he did not want to sell to the person. And the dude from TFT basically threatened a ban if he did not sell him his cheaply priced item. But it's his prerogative whether or not he wants to sell it to somebody.
Yeah.
And he got banned. And then he went on, I think Twitter and talked about it. And then someone else did it. And then by the end of the weekend, every streamer was trying to speed run getting banned in TFT by posting a clown emoji.
Man.
So TFT is imploding, and GGG has already come out and said that some of the harder things to sell are going to be itemized, like ashlings.
Yes.
So you'll be able to sell the state of your June missions. So I mean they're basically trying to remove the need for TFT. And also a bunch of websites have sprung up in the last few days trying to automate anything that you would ever need to go to TFT for. So yeah, it's
also there's going to be an actual instant buyout auction house in EOE 2.
Oh wow!
I am actually surprised at that part.
Yeah,
that got mentioned in a interview between developers and Zizarin, which also includes something where I'm like, "Do you guys know how your game works?"
No.
right.
Not really.
Yeah.
They clearly don't. But that sounds like the devs actually admitting that they made a mistake, which is kind of shocking from these devs. From
There's
what I can tell.
Basically, it sounds like there's going to be a resource that drops, probably gold, and gold's base only function is to act as the currency in which you are required to pay the tax to use the auction house.
Like, while leveling, it's used to buy things off vendors, but after you've finished leveling, I think the gold sink will be the auction house.
We have discussed about their poor use of vendors in the past.
Yes. There will be an actual currency in PoE. That's crazy.
I mean, we knew that part already, but...
I mean, I'm hoping that, all of the TFT shenanigans are going to bring about or force some changes. Because, like, realistically, the only reason why the trade site exists in the first place, apparently, is because the popular unofficial trade site had RMT ads on it. So they decided to build their own.
This is why if you prove you can't have nice things, they get taken away. And sometimes it's better. Some things it's better to centralize, I think.
I mean, I have used TFT. The only thing I've ever bought off of it is hideouts. And I think you had to sell your mirror through it.
I used TFT because I did not know how to sell a mirror.
Because
there's
you
not
got
really a way right now.
Yeah, that you
there is
could
a
not
way.
sell through the channels.
Well, the problem with selling a mirror is that the going rate is 913 divines when I sold it.
Yes.
And the maximum number of divines you can put into a trade window is 600. So what it turns out is so I went to TFT basically because there's a reputational aspect to it, and people don't want to burn their reputation.
Or at least they didn't.
People. Well, yeah, that's the thing. At least they used to not. But the actual answer is you could do it via a normal thing. You would just need to tell them, hey, you need to have mirror shards in order to facilitate this trade.
Yeah, basically they would have had to buy a bunch of mirror shards with their divines and then trade those to you.
Yes.
Which at that point, can't you just turn the mirror shards into a mirror?
Well, they bought they had 5 mirror shards. So they gave me half a mirror and half the price.
Right.
But also this person was probably operating in multi-mirror types of transactions.
Oh, probably.
So they probably just have a mirror's worth of mirror shards on hand to facilitate these types of transactions.
I mean, during a normal league, and we talked about this, I don't know if did we talk about mirror-based economy on the show?
I can't remember.
We
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, but in a normal league, people buy mirrors in trade because the mirrors sell for less in trade than they do in standard. So there's a whole crew of people that play trade to buy mirrors cheaply to utilize in standard.
Because standard has the best items in the game, so you can just mirror those.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Cough.
So there's this constant slow gain of prices of shards, the cards that generate shards, and mirrors as the league goes on. This league just did weird things.
Because people actually used mirrors.
Yep. They were removing something from the economy that didn't used to get removed from the economy. Anyway.
Yep.
Bosses are fun.
Bosses are fun. They should be more accessible.
They should be more accessible. I believe
I have some good news for you about a game that's launching near the end of the month.
Oh my goodness, I'm so freaking excited.
Yeah,
I'm going to be on vacation during launch week, and I'm bummed about this because I'm going to be away from internet access, and apparently offline mode doesn't work the way I want it to.
What game?
Lost Epoch.
Yes. That is wow. That's
I'm
soon.
looking forward to it.
All right.
I'm going to, inside of me, there's going to be so many wolves.
I don't even know what I'm going to play yet. I'm obviously going to create something new so it'll play in the cycle.
I mean,
I need to find out if the wizard that I like in PoE and that I also like in Last Epoch is actually a trap. Because I've been burned too many times.
I don't know. Like I've not finished leveling it, but I was absolutely playing with the chain lightning mage, wizard, whatever, sorcerer, whatever they're called.
Experimented with a lightning sorcerer in Last Epoch, but I know that ice and fire are both good. So I hope lightning is also good.
I've messed around a little bit with one, and it seemed completely fine.
Like I made it to around 30, 40-ish, and like chain lightning's real good.
It would not be the first time that I've played a game where fire and ice were good and lightning was hot fucking garbage.
I am most looking forward to a bunch of new people coming into the game and hopefully generating news-based content for it.
I am in agreement with this wish.
Because there's a specific news source that I do not love, but I continue to watch because it's the only news source. Anyway, any final thoughts about anything?
Pour one out for the nearly 7,000 game devs in January of this year. It's rough out there, folks.
It's very rough.
Enjoy the games you got.
Yeah,
Pay for games if you can.
I am reminded of the perpetual H-Bomber guy reference, which is, this is like one of the most innovative, wonderful games, so of course they went out of business. And last year felt like one of the best years ever, so of course games went out of business.
Yep.
It's a thing. I don't mean to end on a downer note, but also it weighs heavily on my mind.
Yeah.
Because making a sustainable amount of money is not good enough. You have to make all of the money.
The line must go up.
Anyway. It feels disingenuous to say hopefully you enjoyed the show. And we will see you again next week.
We will see you again next week. And we do hope you enjoyed the show.
Indeed.
Yes.
Anyway. Night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.
Good night.